Hi, welcome to YTV and this week's segment of Everybody Has a Story. Jonathan Holloway is the Dean of Yale College and a professor of history and African American studies. Prior to his selection as dean in July, Holloway served as master of Calhoun College, chair of the Council of Masters, and chair of the African American Studies Department. And he's with us today. Dean Holloway, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So you're fully in your new job or in your new office, which used to belong to Dean Miller. Was there any specific advice that she gave you or that President Salovey, who's also held this job in the past, gave you about coming in and taking on this role?
Well, specific advice. I got a ton of advice from them both. I think if I had to sum it up, though, it was take deep breaths, have fun. I mean, really basics. Certainly following Peter Salovey's sort of desire for a more open university, I've embraced the idea of being available to students as much as possible.
Former Yale faculty member William Deresiewicz published a piece in the New Republic, which I know you read, called "Don't Send Your Kids to the Ivy League."
Mm-hmm.
He makes a whole host of critiques in this piece. I want to focus on one of them. He writes, quote, "The irony is that elite students are told that they can be whatever they want, but most of them end up choosing to be one of a few very similar things," end quote. Now, a couple consulting firms had their recruiting sessions on campus this week. Do you see this trend of going into finance and consulting as problematic?
Well, I'm not sure that Deresiewicz is right in the first place, so let's just start there. There are certain areas in which a lot of students go into. We know that. Teaching is actually larger than finance. So I think that's a huge thing he just missed right at the beginning. That is involving different kinds of impulses as well. But, frankly, trends kind of come and go. I mean, if this is a larger trend, and if there is something morally wrong or ethically wrong, as he seems to imply about heading into finance, which I'm not saying that there is, I'm not terribly concerned about it. I mean, I think that if we are doing our job as educators, and I think we are, that we're sending off students who are not simply going into a place to crunch numbers to make profit for the sake of profit, but we're sending them students who actually have a sense of a broader notion of the world. And I think they can bring that to bear as they go into the finance world or all the other worlds that they're looking into.
Harvard recently, in the spring, voted to start offering certain gender-neutral housing options to sophomores.
Mm-hmm.
You've been opposed to offering that to Yale sophomores in the past. I want to read a quote from a Yale Daily News article about a year and a half ago where he said, "There was a feeling that developmentally sophomores are not ready for mixed gender suites. There are a whole host of cognitive and social abilities sophomores are still forming, and I think many are not quite ready for the interesting complications that may arise from gender-neutral housing," end quote.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still your view on the issue?
That is still my view, but it's also, we're dealing with a huge shifting landscape in all of these issues. So I'll be happy to have conversations about it going forward, and I'm sure it'll come before the Council of Masters. And that quote was from when I was chair of the council, I believe. There are emotional, cognitive issues, as you quoted, which I stand by. But there are also logistical issues that really relate to the way in which housing is run at Yale that have to be taken into consideration. Harvard houses its sophomores in a very different way than Yale does, transition from freshmen to sophomores. So structurally, it's easier to make this kind of change at Harvard than you would at Yale. So that's just one mundane fact that has to be put in place. Everything I've heard and experienced as a master about gender-neutral housing for juniors and seniors has been a great success. So I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to it at all. It's the timing of it that is something I need to think about some more, but I've been concerned about.
I guess the question I would have with regards to the social and cognitive abilities is, do you see, at least in dealing with these circumstances, do you see a significant difference between a Yale sophomore and a Yale junior?
Oh, yeah, I do actually. They are incremental, but they're incremental in substantial ways, and this is based on research findings. I can't quote the people, but they are cited to us when we had a broader conversation by psychologists who study the development of the human brain and emotions and the neuroscience involved in it as well. That there are significant changes in each year that correspond with freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. And so I'm fully convinced there are real changes. And I've certainly seen the changes from a lay perspective in the way in which each of these different classes at Yale interacts socially with one another. I just think there are real differences. And I think that to ask someone who in the spring of his or her freshman year to make these decisions that they'll have to live with for the next 16 months it's asking too much at that moment.
There's been a lot of controversy in the past around the naming of current colleges, including at your college, you won your master at Calhoun College after John C. Calhoun and Jonathan Edwards and so forth. Do you think that these two colleges, Yale should try and make them named after either a woman or a minority?
I welcome I welcome the fact of the conversation. I do not want to be in that conversation because no matter how it ends up, someone's going to lose and going to be upset. So I would personally, speaking not as a dean but as just an individual on this planet, would love to see the college naming diversified to represent who Yale is at this moment in time. My concern, though, is if you have these two colleges that are, quote, so far away to Yale undergraduates' consciousness, that they somehow become ghettoized, is sort of, well, sloppy logic, but it's something that's going to be jumped on if people think that Yale's doing some politically correct kind of maneuvers. That's the kind of Yale can't win in that situation. That said, there are all kinds of amazing alumni, men and women, and who are across a racial and ethnic perspective to choose from. So, I mean, not to mention sexuality or political orientation. I mean, there's a lot of alumni to choose from. So it'll be curious to see how this turns out.
When you talked to the Yale Alumni Magazine about grade grubbing, and you said, when you played Little League soccer, winners won a trophy, losers did not. Today, everyone gets a trophy. Are students so just reacting to the system in place, to a bad job market, and to graduate schools that want to see these numbers?
I'm sure that's part of it. I mean, it's a whole system, and Yale's part of it, and not immune from its pressures, or not immune from even adding to its complications, certainly. But I do think that there has been a really intense generational shift, and not all of it bad, but a generational shift in turn that is, I can't think of the word right now, but is deeply concerned about students' well-being, personal, social, and mental well-being. These are good things, but that the easy answer in terms of well-being is give only positive feedback. People will feel better. And that's actually not healthy in the long run, because people aren't prepared for life, frankly.
But when you will look at these grading proposals again, when they come up, will you take into account the debate about mental health services and wellness at Yale, and what students' concerns are in making Yale more like schools like Princeton that have a harsher grading system?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, I don't know. Without it in front of me, I just don't know how to answer that question at this time. I'm not trying to dodge. I don't know how to answer that question, actually.
Steven Pinker actually responded to the William Deresiewicz piece by saying that students at these elite universities don't take advantage of the incredible academic resources, that they're more focused on the newspaper or the debate society or whatever it may be. Do you think that's a valid criticism of Yale students?
I'll put it this way, it's a concern I have. I'm not going to say it's a valid criticism because there's incredible things to be gained from all these other extracurriculars. But I've always been once I understood the life of a student when I moved into the college, I've been concerned about excess in the sense that Yale is really good at providing resources to do all these different kinds of activities, from academic to purely social. It's really not good at itself or asking of students to ask the question why. Like, just because we can, does that mean we should? And a piling up of relentless opportunity, of endless opportunities can feel relentless. And the first thing to go often is often, homework or really doing the reading you should have been in a thoughtful and engaged way. So that's a concern. It's not a crisis here. It's a concern. And that's a concern from the students' well-being. You guys don't get enough sleep, as in general. It's a concern about a larger cultural phenomenon of multitasking to the nth degree, so that instead of doing 2 extracurricular activities really well, you'll do 5, but just kind of okay. I would think that wouldn't be personally rewarding, to be honest. So it's a concern.
We always end our interviews with a speed round of quick, fun questions. If you could be the master of any other college than Calhoun College, what would
I would
it
spend
be?
a month at every college enjoying the excellence of every single other one. How's that for a dodge?
That's a politician's
Yeah,
answer.
darn right it is.
I am told that you are a board gamer. What is
Yes.
your board game of choice?
The family game for the last 6 months has been Ticket to Ride. In fact, we had a couple of freshmen took up a personal challenge. Well, they took it as their challenge, wrote to me out of the blue, heard that I like board games. Let's play Settlers of Catan, which I played once. It's too complicated for me. And so like, look, come up to our house. And we actually got together this past Saturday. I had a great time. Wife had a great time. I hope they had a great time. But we played Ticket to Ride for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever it was.
They were Brantford freshmen. I'm a freshman counselor.
Oh,
in
well
Brantford.
done.
They were Brantford freshmen.
If I were the master of Brantford, we'd play games all the time.
I was gonna say, now that they made the initiative, you should be or Elizabeth Bradley's master of Brantford, but you
I
can
could be game master.
you can change your answer to the second question and say you'd be master of Brantford.
For the month.
You could.
And
For
we'd
the
have a
month.
great time in that month.
Playing board games.
And then I'd
Okay.
play board games in another college the next month.
All right. Number 4, this is a question I asked President Salve, President Levin, so I'll ask it to you. Have you ever had a Wenzel?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Way too many times, actually. Way too many times because, yes, because they're incredibly good. Too many times because as you get older, you get this thing called heartburn, unpleasant. And way too many times because the Wenzel's not really a slimming kind of entree. And so in 8 years of being a master, I don't know how many Wenzels I've had, but enough that I need to push back a little
Well,
bit.
if you've had one, you've had one more than both President Levin and President Salve,
Oh, that's
so
a
you're on
shame.
the right track.
Okay.
I know.
I'm a lover of fried foods with spicy sauce, with some mayonnaise on the side as well, with cheese somewhere involved in that. So it's a problem.
You still got a college student in you.
I absolutely do.
All right, number 5, the Yale Herald, when people were speculating that you would be named dean, the Yale Herald published this blog post
Yes, they
about the
did.
conspiracy to take over Yale
It's true.
by Stanford.
Yes.
You went to Stanford, President Salloway went
Yeah.
to Stanford, President Levin went to Stanford. Is there a cardinal conspiracy here?
Oh, well played. Very nice. A cardinal conspiracy. I would have to kill you if I answered the question truthfully. So let's leave it at that.
Well, it's good that we're on the last question then, so I can run out of here. Dean Holloway, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
As always, thank you for joining us. For YTV, I'm Cody Pomerantz, and this has been Everybody Has a Story. See you next time.